Hi, everyone. Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Miguel Burguet. I'm a program coordinator here at Google for Startup Spain, and I'm pleased to introduce you a new talk, part of our global program, Startup School Restart. So, as many of you may know, as part of the Startup School Restart program, we have been recruiting an amazing panel of mentors from Google, experts, and startup founders from our community. Our goal is basically to offer you the tools and skills to restart your business during these challenging times. Before we start, I would like to ask all of you to please check into the link that you have below so that we can follow up with you after the session. And without further delay, let me introduce you our special guest today, Goldy Bardin.
Hola a todos.
Hi, Goldy. Goldy is the creative director at Google Cloud Online. And before joining Google, Goldy worked several years as a senior and freelance copywriter for more than 80 brands. So please feel free to drop your questions for Goldy on the live chat on the right side of your screen or below if you are on your mobile. And I just want to thank you, everyone, to be here today. And most of all, welcome Goldy to our afternoon session here in Spain. So I'll let you present your slides, and I'll be back for the Q&A.
Gracias, Miguel. Hello, everybody. Hola a todos. Thank you so much for joining me today for building your brand through digital marketing. Today, I'm going to talk to you about how to create or optimize your website to make it a more effective channel for growth and a more powerful vehicle for building your brand. So my name is Goldy Bardin, and as you can see by this photo, very professional, I was one of the advisors at last year's Startup Advisor Summit in Madrid. This is me looking quite jet-lagged, coming home from a late night at St. Guinness after eating a lot of churros. Fun fact, I used to have a startup. When I first graduated college with a degree in illustration, a friend and I started America's first mean-spirited greeting card company. In 3 years, we were selling our cards in the United States, in the UK, Canada, and even Japan. We had a lot of fun, but my partner and I knew nothing about business. So when our distributor won the New York State Lottery and quit, true story, my partner and I decided to fold our business, which is how I ended up going into marketing. But a lot's happened between then and now. Today, I lead the creative and localization teams for the Google Cloud web team. That's me with my dog there. I've helped launch over 200 product websites. I've also worked in the brand studio where I helped develop the first Google brand guidelines. Before Google, I spent 18 years on the agency side, creating brand guidelines, 360 marketing campaigns, interactive experiences for over 80 brands. My specialty is in writing and content strategy, and I also have a background in design and illustration. And of course, I love St. Guinness churros, which you can see by the t-shirt in the background. So today I'm here to talk with you about building your brand. The most important thing I want you to take away from this talk is that building your brand isn't about spending a ton of money or designing a killer logo or a big PR stunt. It's not even about what you sell. Building your brand is about building strong and lasting relationships with your customers. So I am sure that most of you are familiar with the 5 stages of the customer journey, or sometimes you'll see it as a funnel. Awareness leads to interest, which leads to consideration, then conversion, and then finally engagement. But to me, that's just marketing speak. I like to think about it in human terms. What we're really trying to do is build a good relationship with our core audience. So awareness is really about getting someone to notice you. Interest is about making sure you're attracting the right people. Consideration is making sure that you have something valuable to offer compared to other choices out there. And conversion isn't about a sale, it's a commitment between you and that customer. And then finally, engagement is about fostering that commitment by making them fall in love with you over and over again. So let's start with noticing, getting someone's attention. It's really hard work getting people to your website. There's lots of ways to drive traffic, from organic search and paid search, social media, email marketing, earned media, and links from other sites, and finally paid media and out of home. But a good website can really help you stick the landing. So the problem is with you can drive a lot of traffic to your site, but there's a lot of noise out there. And so a lot of people are competing with you to grab someone's attention. So to demonstrate, I want us to try an experiment. Okay. So on the count of 3, I want you to all go into chat and try to sell something. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Start selling. I'm not. Hopefully you've kind of gotten this. So if you go to the live comments, hopefully this is working. Okay. I'm not seeing anything come up, so I don't know if this is working the way I intended, but that's basically, if you're all just trying to sell me something at the same time. Okay, we're going to try it again. 1, 2, 3. Go in the live comments and sell me something. Okay. All right, maybe this part isn't going to work. I'll give it a couple more minutes. Oh, are you hungry? Thank you. All right, great. I see a lot of things coming through now. These are great. So thank you for participating in that little thought experiment. It can be a really confusing. I see everything from, snowboards to dog food, special offers, and it can be very confusing. And really, there's a lot of brands competing for the attention of potential customers. It's very, very hard to get people to notice you and to stand out. In Dr. Khalsa's book, Brain Longevity, he posits that the average American sees a certain number of advertisements, logos, and labels in just one day. Now, if you have a guess, you can put that again in the live comments. How many advertisements, logos, and labels does the average American see in one day? I'll give you a couple minutes to guess. I'm still getting offers. Any number is fine. $4,000, $500, $25,000, $30,000. Those are great guesses. So the actual number is 16,000, which seems like an incredibly high number. But if you think about it, the first thing we do when we wake up is we look at our phones and we see a lot of, icons and logos. Then we get dressed. There's more logos in our closet. I'm wearing a logo right now. And then we go into our refrigerator and there's, logos on every single piece of packaging in your refrigerator or your cabinet. We go into the bathroom, we get ready. You open up their cabinet, there's shampoo logos. You go to drive to work or you take the train. You think about all the other cars on the road with logos, all the billboards, all the buildings, all the stores. And then you might listen to the radio, more ads. You get home, you might watch TV or YouTube, more ads. So it's physically impossible for us to pay attention to it all. So the human brain has to filter it out. Basically, we are programmed not to pay attention. So instead of trying to get people to come to you, which is very hard, as we just demonstrated, you'll have a lot better chance of getting noticed if you meet people where they are. Google Ads, this is a great example of how to do this with paid media. It only displays your ad when someone is searching for terms that align with what you have to offer. So you can be right there when they are in the right mindset, when they're thinking about your product category, or if they are affiliated, or if they haven't, sorry, if they are interested in your brand. So they're much more likely to notice you if they're in the right mindset. If you're not sure how to find the right audience, you can use, there's a tool on Think with Google, Find My Audience, where you can kind of, use these little filters and categories, and you can figure out which people might have an affinity for your brand and what you're trying to sell. And that will help you with, fine tuning your AdWords if you're using AdWords. I'm going to talk about social media, which can be a great way to meet people where they already are, if done in the right way. So to celebrate their 100th birthday, Oreo Cookies launched an ad campaign on their website and Facebook pages called Oreo's Daily Twist. And for each of those 100 days, they posted a new print style ad featuring their popular cookie, but it was cleverly themed as an ode to the day. So by making the content about current events and what people were already talking about on social media, they were seamlessly able to take part in these conversations that people were already having, but in an ownable, branded way. And so here are a few examples. On June 25th, it was Gay Pride. So they did a rainbow Oreo cookie. There's one about Shin Shin, the panda who had a baby, and that was kind of the big talk of that time. And then there was the Mars rover landing, the anniversary of Elvis's birthday. And then even when Spain won the UEFA Euro 2012 final, they did a little tribute to that. And they ramped up their social media team for a big social event in the US called the Super Bowl, which is American football. And there was a moment in the middle of the game when the power just went out, and everyone flocked to social media and was like, what is going on? There's, the power out in the middle of the game. And Oreo's team was right there, and they posted this very simple tweet that they kind of put up within within 30 minutes, and it just said, you can still dunk in the dark. And this was just such an amazing, really smart social media campaign. It led to, it's very, very successful. So by meeting people where they are and having something relevant to say that contributes to the conversation and being authentic really helped. It also helped that every day, they did this every day for 100 days. This is actually a really great demonstration of the rule of 7. This is one of the oldest concepts in marketing. It says that the average user will have to have at least 7 interactions with your brand or advertising before they buy it. It doesn't mean that you should repeat yourself, but it does mean that it will take a while for that message and brand to sink in. And so be consistent, stay on message. Another way to say this is, we always say it again, say it again. And that doesn't mean you have to say the same thing every time, but think of different ways to make sure that your message is kind of getting through. Another place to engage with people and get them to notice you is on YouTube, of course. If you're going to advertise on YouTube or post videos on YouTube about your brand, make sure that you make short, compelling, and memorable videos. You can learn a lot about how to make videos on YouTube's advertiser website. It's also really important to be relevant on YouTube. So people are trying to watch videos. This is an entertainment channel, so you really don't want to get in their way. And you also need to understand what's trending. So right now, because everyone is sheltering in place, trying to figure out how to do things they normally rely on others for, the DIY or do-it-yourself videos are really having a moment right now. The hashtag #WithMe allows people to find videos ranging from how to give yourself a haircut, to baking sourdough bread, or to entertaining your kids with crafts. There's been a 600% increase in WithMe videos since February. So that's just something to look at right now, but always just, if you're gonna go after social media, really like start to understand the trends. Speaking of trends, so Google Trends is another tool that you can use if you're interested in what's trending and what keywords. This is just, you can see this is how to give myself a haircut, just had a huge spike this spring. But you can search for anything on here and compare different keywords. So just to recap this chapter, getting noticed is about meeting customers where they are, being relevant, being authentic, not overly salesy, and don't give up. Okay, on to the next phase of the funnel. This is making a great first impression. So one of the most important ways to do this is through your website. When people land here for the first time, before they click or scroll, there should be enough information here for them to understand your brand, your offering, and most importantly, your personality. Although this seems very simple, this is our Pixel website. It seems very simple, but there's actually a lot of information here. So there's navigation, there's a demo, there's calls to action, a special offer, and then there's the fold, which is the bottom of the screen before people scroll. So there's enough here that I can see right away there's a demo about the camera, which intrigues me. I see the offer, which sounds enticing without being overly salesy. I see the Google G in the upper left corner, so that gives the site validity. And then the brand is I can understand this brand is very bold, straightforward, and it's very feature forward because it's about the camera, not about the product. And it's showing me what I can do with my phone, not just talking about the phone itself. Let's look at the Nest website. So still very simple and clean, but again, a lot of information is packed here, but in a different way. You can see that there's the secondary nav is actually done in a way where you can get right to the type of device that you want. And then, if you know which product you want, there's this cool illustration of the phone or of the house that is interactive, and you can click directly on the products. So again, at first glance, it seems very clean and simple, but there's enough information there that people can get started. Okay, so when people come to your website, whether it's for the first time or not, it's important to make a good first impression and really think about what you put above the fold and make sure that it's a good reflection of your brand, your tone of voice, and that you're putting the needs of the user first. So imagine if this were a face-to-face meeting and you tried these three things. So the first thing, you can do this offline if you want, because I think it's a good exercise. The first thing is introduce yourself and state as many facts about yourself that you can think of. Try not to take a breath. In the chat, you can tell me how that would feel meeting someone like that. If it was just, I just talked about myself nonstop for 3 minutes straight. I'll give you a minute to. I don't think it would make a good first impression if all they talked about was them. The second scenario is when you introduce yourself and when that other person tries to engage, interrupt them and ask them for their credit card number. Again, I don't think that would make a very good first impression. And then the third scenario is before introducing yourself, don't even talk about yourself, tell them about someone else they should meet. And so none of these really make a good first impression, and you can apply these same principles and more with your website. So like that first example, telling without showing makes a really bad first impression. This website is telling me a lot of things, but coming here, I don't really know what this is about. I don't know what they offer. It's actually for a maid service, but I don't see any pictures of clean homes. I don't see any pictures of maids. So I find it very dull, as you might when you're talking to someone who only talks about themselves. This is a good example, the second one, where you're asking for commitment before people even understand your offer. So I found this website on search. I went to it, and immediately they're asking me for my email before I even know if I want to sign up or join. So I felt like that was a little bit of an intrusion. So they were trying to be exclusive, and they ended up being intrusive. And then the third one is this website is giving up almost half of their above the fold real estate to another brand, to an ad. So if you have a free or low cost service, hosting ads on your website is a great way to make money. In fact, we have a product called Google AdSense that lets you earn money by hosting ads on your site. But you can actually choose the types of ads that go on your site, the size, and where to place them, and to make sure that it's, in line with what you have to offer. In this case, they're just not using it very effectively. So to recap this chapter, you need to make a strong first impression. Let your personality show, make people feel welcome, don't try too hard, and make sure there's an action they can take to learn more, contact you, or buy. Okay, dating, proving you are worth their time. You want to swipe right, I guess. That's the term. So now that introductions are out of the way, people will actively be considering your offer. But remember, they still have other choices they're comparing you with. So you want to read up on your competition and clearly state your selling points. So let's do another mental exercise. In this case, I want you to close your eyes, and I'm going to guide you through this exercise. So if you close your eyes, I want you to imagine that you are a website. What kind of people would you like to have visit you? What do you want them to do when they get there? What do you have to offer them that would be of interest? How would you keep them coming back? What do you want them to remember about you? How can you help them remember that? Okay. Okay, you can open your eyes now. So I'm sure all of you had really creative answers. I actually did it myself. I think this is just a good exercise to really think about, making your brand personal. So what I came up with is I love travel and baking. So if I were a website, it would probably be more of an open invitation for people to come and see photos of interesting food and baked goods from my travels. And maybe I could post some recipes because I'd like to try these recipes at home. I could share my baking tips. I could share my travel tips. I could, inspire people to learn about desserts from all around the world, and then also invite people to share theirs. So it'd be a little bit more of a community site. And so the biggest thing I would want them to take away from this is they're sort of in the know on where to go when they're traveling. If they want to try something really wonderful and photograph it and try it. But also if they love to bake, they can try it at home and try to get the best tips on how to recreate it. Okay. So what I just did there was storytelling. What we just did was we came up with a story about if we were a website, and we painted a picture and it really came to life. As you build out the website and your content on the website, it's okay to use the same approach. Really think about, if I were going to tell a story about my product or my brand or my offering, how would I kind of draw people in? How would I kind of paint that picture? How can I show with words and with pictures and be authentic? So don't use jargon. Don't be a bore. Don't get ahead of yourself. This is where storytelling is really, really important. There's some best practices in storytelling, to remove any doubt, make your intentions clear, make sure that it's entertaining to read. Okay. There's a great book I recommend to help you hone your storytelling skills. It's called Made to Stick by Chip Heath and Dan Heath. In it, you will learn the principles of storytelling that will help people remember your message. And the principles of stickiness, as they call it, is to keep it simple, little unexpected, concrete, give like really concrete examples, credible, don't just kind of make it up or make it seem like it's not believable. And then emotional, why is this important? How is this going to kind of strike a chord with them? How is it personal to you? And then tell a story. If you don't have time to read the book, there's also a YouTube link there at the bottom. Oh, sorry, there we go. So to recap, getting people interested in you means telling them about yourself in a way that's memorable, being respectful of their time, answering their questions, and removing any doubt or friction. And then also making it clear how to take the next step. All right, sealing the deal. Or as Beyonce says, put a ring on it. So once people are ready to buy, don't get in their way. Make sure that the path to purchase is frictionless. There are different mindsets when it comes to buying online. Some people want to manage the process themselves without talking to anyone. Others want to talk through their questions with a salesperson. You have to understand what's right for your audience. But by offering your website visitors different ways to convert, you're less likely to miss out on a sale. So I'm going to go back to the Google Ads website. They do a great job with this. Although the website looks clean and uncluttered, on closer inspection, you can see there are multiple paths for people to get started depending on what they prefer. So for do-it-yourselfers, there are Start Now buttons. You'll notice there are two. One is in the upper right in the nav, which is sticky and it's going to stay with you as you navigate the site. And then one is on the left, and that's because in eye tracking studies, that's where people's eyes tend to linger the longest, on that left side. So by putting that button there, they have more of an opportunity to see it. Many people prefer setting up new accounts with the help of an agent. So again, on the left where it's noticeable, you'll see the phone number, and then we also have it up in the header where it's sticky and it'll stay with you. And then finally, there's a chat bot with a human face in the lower right and a link to contact in the header. So it doesn't feel overwhelming at first, but you see that there's lots of different ways for people to get started without feeling overly salesy. So let's point those out. So I want to talk about friction and how it can really kill a sale. So until very recently, it was my job to go out and do the grocery shopping every weekend at the local Safeway. It's my supermarket. And I tried using the Safeway app once to get groceries delivered, and it didn't work. First of all, there were way too many choices. I could see how to get things into my shopping cart, my online shopping cart, and I did all that. I spent a lot of time. And then when I set up a delivery time, only then did it tell me that they actually don't deliver from that Safeway to my house. So I just wasted a whole bunch of time, and it just ended up being a very bad experience. So I was pretty jaded by these apps, but when we were ordered to shelter in place recently, I decided to give Instacart a go. All it took was hearing about it from one of my friends on social media. And I have to say the experience was so much easier before I even got to shopping. They started my experience by validating that they delivered to my house from the store that I wanted. And by kind of getting that friction out of the way, I could confidently go shopping, fill my cart. And even better, they assign your shopper and they can ask questions. If they don't have what I want, they'll ask me what to replace it with. So it's a very interactive experience. And I feel confident that when they deliver my groceries, that I've gotten everything that I wanted to get that week. So really think about all the different friction points in that sale and how you can remove them completely. So to recap, make sure you understand how people conduct their sale, give them options, and make sure it's clear. Remove any friction points in the sale, and use the fewest number of steps to complete the sale. And then finally, keep the lines of communication open in case people need assistance. It's always nice. Okay. So happily ever after. This is, you've gotten the sale, and now what? So why is a lasting relationship so important for your brand, and what makes a relationship last? So I looked up who had the longest marriage in the Guinness Book of World Records. It was Zelmira and Herbert Fisher. They were married for 84 years. And when asked about what their secret was, they said, respect, support, and communicate with each other. Be faithful, honest, and true. You should apply the same principles to your relationship with your customers. In an article from Forbes, it says that 67% of customers would switch brands because of a poor customer experience. Just because you were able to make the sale doesn't guarantee that a customer will stay with you or recommend you to others. And a poor customer experience can actually really hurt your brand, especially if people start complaining about you on social media. So don't wait for your poor customer experience to become a PR nightmare. Make sure your customers are able to speak to a person who can provide them the answers they are looking for, and make sure that the people answering them are trained and are helpful, not rude. Don't leave people on hold too long. Don't pass them around. Basically, just make sure your customers feel respected and heard. Thoughtful touches are really important, just like in a long-term relationship. So it's important to remind customers that they are valued. I want to tell you about a little company called Min & Mon. They're a small startup that makes high-quality purses and wallets by local artists. They just opened their store last year in New York City. And because of COVID-19, I was thinking about ways to support the small businesses that I love. So I ordered a bag from them. And to my surprise and delight, they sent along a handmade face mask with a note signed by the founders. And the note says, "In the pursuit of health and true solidarity, we are gifting a face mask with every order. Our desire is that it will help you stay safe, and if you don't need it, that you will give it to someone who does." This small gesture made me fall in love with them all over again. And of course, they were very smart to make their face mask with their logo. You know, people love swag. So to recap, the secret to a lasting relationship is respect, support, and open communication. Be proactive about surprising and delighting your most loyal customers. And if you do receive complaints, respond quickly and be willing to make changes to make it right. People will forgive small failings if you're sincere. And finally, just to wrap all of this up, I want to talk to you about staying consistent with all of these steps in the customer relationship. So we're going to talk about your brand. Branding is an ever-evolving concept. In the last 20 years, there have been hundreds of books and articles from marketing experts on branding. There's no right or wrong approach. The important thing to remember is that all of these are just methods for how marketers work with brands to uncover the undeniable truths about how you present yourself to your intended audience. So I want you to do some soul searching. I mentioned before that you should meet people where they are, but it's also important for them to want you to meet you. And for newer companies starting out, you may not have a strong brand identity yet. You might have an amazing product, but if your message is weak or if your brand seems too similar to a more well-known brand, it can really send the wrong signals to the people that you want to attract. So I strongly suggest that you spend some time thinking about these questions and doing some mind mapping. So start with what you do and why you do it. Who is it for? How is it different? from other similar companies? Why should people believe you? What do you stand for? And who are you? So write as many things as you can think of and come up with some surprising connections. Remember my mean-spirited greeting card company? So I did a simple mind mapping against these questions just to show you an example. So what is our purpose? I put in there the first honest greeting card, but then I realized that greeting card's pretty narrow, so I ended up adding some other bubbles. Who is it for? A little bit about my audience and who I might be targeting. How is it different? And so in ours, it's kind of mean-spirited. And then why should people care? What do we stand for? Who are we? And as I was doing this exercise, I was struck by a couple of things. The number of times I wrote the word honest and truthful. We actually had an amazing fan base when we had this company. I would get actual fan mail. Looking back, I now realize that people were not attracted to the mean-spiritedness of the cards, but to our honesty. I think the mistake that we made was we were too focused on the greeting cards. Truth can be told through any piece of merchandise. So if we had thought to expand our product line into t-shirts and mugs and other things with a higher profit margin, maybe we would have been more successful. And to get to the heart of what you do and why you do it can really help to focus your brand image and messaging on the most important things that will resonate with customers. I was even inspired to write a tagline, which was "We mean it," which has the double meaning of we make mean-spirited greeting cards, but also we really mean what we say and we're honest. So this was a really great exercise for finding the things that are truly unique and important for your brand. Make sure that you use the insights that you get from this to build strong brand positioning and a mission statement. And what you discover here will help you build out your brand persona and help you find the right tone of voice and even influence the look of your logo, your color scheme, and photography and illustration style. And this was a quick exercise. You can spend an hour doing this. Differentiation is one of the most important things a new company needs to do. It's not enough to build a great product if customers don't understand how it's different from similar offerings. So make sure you take some time to understand what people are expecting from your product category or from what your competitors are offering, and then list what they can expect from you. Really focus on the things that will draw people in and take notice. So you'll see I did the same exercise for my card company. Where we overlap is, we wrote occasion-based cards for birthdays and holidays. They are mailable. You can put them in an envelope. They're sold in gift shops. But the differences are where most greeting card companies at the time were mass-produced. We were custom-made and original. Our cards were also not only sold in gift shops, but also in comedy clubs. And a greeting card from Hallmark might make you smile, but ours would make you laugh out loud. So those were really the kind of core differences, and that exercises kind of help people understand this is still a greeting card, but it's different. If you want to dive into differentiation, I would suggest that you check out Blue Ocean Strategy. They have a course you can take to map out what makes you unique, and they have some pretty cool examples as well. And then this will help you create your brand guidelines. A really well-designed brand book can help be a manifestation of your personality and your tone of voice. There's a couple here, they're posted online that you can take a look at. This one is from Slack, which, if you look at it, it's just friendly, it's bold, very straightforward, very approachable. And then you compare it to another one that you can find online from Alienware, where they convey a very different personality. They're very minimalist, precise, almost conveys that notion of, quality engineering and heroic imagery. So a really well-designed brand book can help you stay consistent with your brand identity. There's some further reading here if you want. There's a number of books here that are really great for branding and brand identity. There's a series of books from Marty Neumeyer that are great for startups. The Brand Gap presents a set of 5 disciplines that lets companies bridge the gap between brand strategy and brand execution. Zag talks about discovering your differentiation, and Brand Flip shows you how to transform your company into one that is really co-creating with your customers. So to recap, when it comes to your brand, don't let it be an afterthought. By doing some soul searching and mind mapping, it can really help you create brand guidelines that can be carried out across every step of the customer journey, in your ads, in your social media, on your website, even in your products and how they're designed. So make sure you understand how you are different and special compared to your competitors. And use your brand guidelines as a vehicle for bringing that brand persona to life. And that is the end of my presentation. I want to say thank you very much for having me. I think we'll go on to questions.
We have to say thank you to you, Goldy. It was a really, really insightful session. We are just waiting on the first questions from the audience. In between, I have a question for you. So you've mentioned a lot the customer journey, and for many people, probably these 5 steps, these 5 stages are already known. But based on your experience advising so many brands during so many years, what do you consider to be the most challenging for new startups entering the market? So out of the 5 stages of the customer journey, where do you believe people fail the most when they're approaching a new market?
I think the hardest thing is probably the engagement after the sale, building that community and that love. Building a community is not easy. So really, it takes a lot of effort to find those people that are going to just embrace your brand and be your advocates and evangelists and talk about you and kind of advocate for you. So really, but that is really hard. I think we kind of get so focused on the selling that we almost forget about how do we actually create these brand ambassadors, if you will.
Okay, I was actually hoping to have some thoughts on the initial stages, because sometimes you are entering. Sometimes you are even creating new markets, right? And mostly for these cases, I think that the initial stages are really difficult, which is how can I be noticed? Because maybe I don't even know who is my right target audience inside big corporations, imagining that I'm a B2B SaaS or anything like that. So I was expecting some big challenges around there as well.
There's big challenges throughout. And that's a really interesting one. If you have something so innovative that nobody can wrap their head around it yet. I mean, imagine it was like when Lyft and Uber, and these ride sharing services came out, nobody could quite understand like what you're going to ask, strangers to pick up other strangers and get in a car, and how is that going to work? So I think kind of breaking down and explaining something so brand new so people can kind of like wrap their heads around it. And then on the same thing, if you have something that is people are familiar with, finding that differentiation and why you should go with your solution versus someone else's, that's also really challenging because, people don't trust you yet. So building that trust in either situation, I think is definitely key.
Sure. We have a first question from the audience. Marisol asks, could you give some tips on how to design a successful lead campaign? This is a vague one, but I think that based on your experience, you can definitely point something out.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you, Marisol. Lead campaigns typically have a form, right, where you're asking for information. So I think my biggest piece of advice is making sure that you understand that you are asking for someone's personal information, their email and their phone number, and that you are following best practices for what you do with that personal data. I think that's going to go a long way. So sorry, I know that's kind of getting into the weeds of the technical part, but I do think it's really important to point out. In terms of the design, Marketo is like the standard, I think, with lead campaigns where you're kind of drawing people in and leading them to a form. So making sure that if you are going to put something behind a form, that it is valuable to the customer. It's valuable enough that they will give their information and potentially want to sign up for more emails from you. So that has to be a very valuable piece of content or something that they're going to want before you're asking for information. So hopefully that helped.
Okay, cool. And Igor asks, how do you connect UX and branding for a small B2B startup?
Yes, that is an excellent question. And actually there's I think there's a UX presentation tomorrow as part of this.
It was last week, actually. I mean, we have one tomorrow as well.
Okay, yes, I think there's one for tomorrow, which might be a good one to stand up. Yes, you want to follow UX best practices, and hopefully in some of the examples you saw, your personality was still able to come through, no matter what your button is designed like, or your font you're using, or the color palette. So the UX best practices still stand. You want to make sure things are responsive, and you're using web best practices and mobile first, and not being too overwhelming. But the branding is really part of how those elements are designed. I know that's a really short answer, but I could probably spend a lot more time.
We could probably spend another session on that.
Yeah.
And Benny asks, do you know of any site okay to learn about branding for new startups?
That's a great question. So one of the books that I recommended was Brand Logo Love, I think it's called, and then there's Branding in 5 Steps. So there's so many great books out there. The ones that I recommended are really good, and I think each of them probably have their own websites as well. The main thing is, you're designing your persona, really being mindful of who else in your category, who your competitors are, and that you're not just taking what they did and kind of flipping it. I think the other thing to really understand is that your logo is going to be used in a number of different cases. Could be on a t-shirt, but it could also be on a little @ button. So you want to make sure that logo is really crisp and clearly designed and differentiated, and test it. Test your design, test your brand, make sure you're getting feedback and hearing feedback, and being open to feedback because it does take a lot of iterations to kind of get to the place that really feels right for you and your brand.
Okay, so test a lot, and mostly if you're joining the market, you have the time to test before everyone knows you as a single brand. Next question from Alina. Do you think some of your tips apply more to startups than scale-ups, and vice versa? Which ones are more important to each one of these categories?
I kept this pretty basic, so no matter where you are with your brand, these are something that anyone can really keep in mind. I think even larger companies, I think I've had really bad brand experiences with customer engagement from companies that are established brands. So really, I think the principles should hold true. They're pretty general enough.
Okay. And another question. So you mentioned the rule of 7, very known in the market. Do you think it applies exactly the same way when you're talking about complexier B2B models? For example, let's think about software B2B models, for example.
Yes.
So you wouldn't change a thing in a way you think about these 7 times they have to actually pass through you and understand you and get some kind of connection with your brand.
I think it's important. I think it's the spirit of that thought. Just because you explain it, it's B2B, you're not going to understand. I actually work for Google Cloud's B2B side of the house, Google Cloud, and we have a lot of different products. And I think that we have to be very consistent about what are the things that make us different from other cloud providers, for example. And so really understanding your differentiation, and just repeat that every time you're talking specifically about a product. Also repeat what makes you different, or just getting your message out there consistently and regularly, I think is the main takeaway from that.
Okay. And another thing really interesting you touched many times, it's about the friction. So let's get out of this friction throughout the process so that there's not enough barriers in the process that would lead your customer out of the process, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, we know, and you mentioned a couple of them, that brands keep failing on these, either established or new ones. Why do you think, based on your opinion and experience, that are the main reasons that lead to companies, brands, established or not, to keep failing on eliminating this friction out of the process?
There can be a number of reasons. There can be, excuse me, it can start from a bad brief to an agency. So if the customer is briefing an agency in to solve this problem for them, but they're not making it clear, who their customers are, the agency could misinterpret it. If there could be some technical challenges that they just can't overcome. Like, for example, your customer may really want a call center, but you can't afford a call center. So there's a number of reasons where friction may be introduced. I think it's your job as the marketer to understand that and try to, preempt it as much as you possibly can. So really, I think we do an exercise here where, once we join a new team, we actually have to play the part of the customer and try to sign up for these products. And it can be really tricky with established brands, right?
That's a good example. How can, like when you have someone from the team actually playing the customer role, how can you eliminate some part of the bias that he probably has by being part of the family, right?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. So I think you kind of design the experience thinking this makes sense to you, but I think you're involved in the whole process and the planning. Whereas if you're coming in and you have no idea, you were not part of that, and you're trying to go through the process yourself, you'll uncover some of those friction points.
Okay, so that might be one of the main reasons people don't test it enough internally or don't test enough the beta versions and so on.
Yeah.
So I was just checking if we have any more questions, which I believe we have one from Kartik. How much of an impact do you think ads have to improve branding?
Ads can have an amazing impact on your brand. I think if done well. They can also have a negative impact if not done well. So I think that the main thing is, again, always thinking about the context, and do people have enough information to grasp what you're doing, and showing, not telling too much, but also like giving them that action point. There are some best practices with how to make sure you're consistent with your, especially in paid media banners and whatnot. There's some best practices in where to place your button, your branding, so that it's consistent no matter what your message is. It's very important.
Okay, I think this was the last question, Goldy. I know. I think you have some final announcement, or
oh yeah,
your slides are not here right now, but they are here now. So feel free, and then we end the session.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just going to give a plug for our digital event for Google Cloud. It's called Next on Air. It starts July 14th. And every Tuesday for 9 weeks, we'll be presenting new sessions on various topics, ranging from how to get your team to work remotely. There's some industry-specific sessions, depending on what vertical you're in. There's a lot of great content. So if you're interested in Google Cloud or G Suite or Google Meet, those types of things, this is a great way to learn about it.
Okay, so you are all invited. I just want to thank you very much, Goldy. It was a very insightful session. We had a lot of interaction. So this is it for today. Thank you very much, Goldy. Just want everyone to know that we'll come back tomorrow at 1 p.m. with a session focused on the importance of closing the first sales. It will be held in Spanish, and you are all invited to attend. So for you, have a great day. For the majority of us, have a great evening, and we see you tomorrow. Thank you, Goldy.
Gracias.
Gracias.